Right, good evening all. For those that don't know, my name is Bill Craik. I'm currently chair of the Kilsyth Community Board. Item 2, apologies. Christine?
Chair, there's been a few apologies. We have Provost Jones, Councillor Kerr, Richard Truesdale, Laura Campbell from Who Cares, and Caroline Richardson from Who Cares.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. The minute of the previous meeting and matters arising, I think maybe what we'll do is, if Graham's here, we'll speak before going into the detail of that minute. Would Graham like to do the overview of the CCTV? Is Graham here? Nope. Right. Okay, we'll come back to that. The minute of the meeting of the 7th June, that was circulated with the papers. Has anybody got any comments or matters arising for that minute? No. Well, I'm just going to stick to character. I've got 1 or 2 items. Item 7, item 7.2. Alan asked if the community board can have a look at the CCTV in action. Matt, you were going to look at that. Did you get any progress or any reaction on that yet?
Chair, I've spoken to the CCTV team regarding the provision in the local area, and we was going to cover some of this under the LDP. We did try and get somebody along from the team, but we'll make sure we can get further input in relation to the CCTV at a future board meeting. But certainly there's been a full assessment carried out of the provision in the area and what's required for the CCTV, and we can cover it more under the LDP going forward. And there's been a plan drawn up for what's required, as deemed to be required, that would provide fairly comprehensive coverage for the main kind of hotspot areas in the Kilsyth area. And that's been costed as well, and in terms of the initial costs of pulling that kind of provision together.
Okay. So could we speak about that at that particular item?
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I was saying, Chair. I can speak at that at the LDP.
What Alan, I think, was asking, maybe Alan can clarify it, was that could the CCTV technical people connect in the CCTV in Kilsyth to a meeting like this so that you can see what's happening and how it works remote at the time? Right.
Apologies, I wasn't aware that was a request. You're looking for a kind of live streaming of the CCTV. I don't know if we'll be able to do that, to be honest with you, but I can certainly speak to the team about that. We did ask for somebody to come along to the team. Unfortunately, they'll be able to make it to the meeting tonight. But we can certainly, what I can do is we can get some stills that from the cameras that shows you the kind of current photo, the current pictures that can be taken, images that are there. We can certainly get that, and we can share that with the community board. We can ask for that to be pulled together, Chair, on that basis. I'm not sure whether they could come along and actually tune into the actual provision and show you on the go at that particular time, but we can certainly make inquiries regarding that for a future meeting.
Right. Alan, am I correct in that assessment?
Yes, I think maybe what Matt says about getting stills in might be interesting. The other thing I was going to ask was how do you assess the effectiveness of the system? Is there any way of doing it?
Could we deal with that, Alan, under the item on the agenda for the CCT project? Right. Okay, the stills would be better than nothing. It would just give us an image of what it actually sees at the call centre end. Good. Right, Matt, thanks. Colin, on page 3, I think it is, about the LOIP document, any idea when the final document is going to be produced? Where is he? Oh, there he is.
That is on the agenda, Chair, but I suppose just to clarify, we at the final stages of the document are still with graphics, and there's just some tweaks we
Right.
need to fix. So I think, you know, once all the boards are finished, we will just be finalising that, and then it gets launched. So fairly quickly, you know,
Right.
fairly quickly, because we obviously are as keen as anybody to kind of move forward with things, and that's probably what I would have said under the LOIP section anyway on the agenda.
Oh, well, thanks very much, Colin. You're off the hook for that one next time. You can have a wee cup of tea then.
Oh, thank you for that.
The car park tarmac at the sports ground CCTV. There was a meeting held there, Colin and Matt, with the Kilsyth Athletics. Is that going to come up under the LDP action?
Well, I can probably say a wee bit to this. I'm not sure if whether anyone else wants to kind of butt in, but the initial, I think that there was updated costings for the tarmacking of the playing the surface, but it was going to cost exorbitant amount of money, so there needs to be a relook at that, of how that may well be feasible. But it's you know, it's probably more of a long-term aspiration than in the kind of the short term.
It could be just short term. The car park surface that's there is just graded and some more whin surface put on it.
I think it was the Provost Jones had a discussion with a contractor, and the contractor kindly came down to the site to have a look, and they had a good chat. And I think that, as I say, the costing was going to be quite more than what was maybe anticipated on
Right.
that. That's probably all I really know about that, you know, and the
Right.
information that I received.
So it's ongoing anyway. So.
Well,
Right.
yes, yeah, I would say so, but it's you know, as I say, a longer term aspiration.
I know that the planning's not here, but does anybody know if the timetable for the Kilsyth Town Vision and the Town Hub, is that still proposed to go to the September policy and strategy meeting?
On schedule for policy and strategy, according to the convener. Thanks, Bill.
Well, thanks very much, Heather. The Kilsyth flooding report. Now, that was Nicole. Any further progress on that report, Nicole?
Certainly, Chair, I can give you an update on that. So I mentioned the last time that we just received the report. I think it will come as no surprise to any of the community board members that it's quite a complex report, and it requires the input of a number of partners as well in terms of finding a solution. So we do have a number of potential solutions. There are workshops planned with the consultants so that we can work those through and ensure that we get the right solution for Kilsyth. And what I would like to propose is that thereafter is that the team actually have workshops with you as a community board as well, and the elected members, to make sure that you can see the direction of travel, the logic behind the decisions that will be made, and that you are relatively comfortable in terms of the how and the why of what we then intend to implement. But I would have to say at this point that we don't have a fixed idea of what we'll implement, so that's the work that still has to be done. There are a number of options, but a number of those options rely on partnership working as well. So the team are continuing to work through that.
Do you have a timescale for that, roughly? Is it going to be this year or?
Yeah, I had asked the team actually that they use as a timetable the next community board meeting. So I would like to have at least in a diary, if not have had the workshops with the board so that we can take you through the flood proposals. But as I say, the first step will be in the next few weeks to meet with the consultants and have workshops with the professional and technical officers.
Grant. The last couple of items I had was Nicole again on the entrance to Balmalloch Primary School. Are you still hassling around on that one?
I think we're moving very much closer to a solution. What I would say to the board is that the issue, which is arisen at Balmalloch Primary School, actually has been identified potentially as an issue across a whole range of the council's estate. So whilst it might seem it's taken us a while to deal with Balmalloch, what we're actually doing is dealing with the issue in the round. So that resolution is to agree between the two services where the boundary lies, and the work will then be carried out. So there's no issue with the work being carried out. It's simply about us meeting this wider resolution, and then it'll be done. So we are very close, Chair, to a resolution to that after very much discussion.
Right, thanks very much, Nicole. And Heather, on that one, you were going to look at, take up with housing Market Square through Cat's Close. Did you manage to have a
Yeah,
look at
that's it's in progress. There's an action plan in evolution at the moment. There is plans to match the railings with the railings and fencing that's already there to create so that it creates a continuum across that, so that we don't look at it and go, new fence. So it's in keeping with the heritage of the setting. There is a concern, as there always is with planning matters, that because there is a right of way there, that there could be a challenge or a concern. My view that I've articulated is that the right of way will remain, but there will be a gate in there that will enable the residents to be secure. The tenants and residents that are there to feel secure. So there is still a through path should people want to use it, but by having the fence and gate in location, it just means that if you don't know it's there, you won't, because it won't be an obvious gate there. So it's in process. So it's just in the mix of materials. Costings are being sought at the moment, along with the getting the design right so that it fits in with the rest of the burn green. So all in process. Just waiting a confirmed timeline, and when I have that, I'll share.
Thank you very much, Heather. Right, that's all I have on the minute. Could somebody propose a minute and somebody second the minute? Alan, propose it. A seconder?
Janet has her hand up, Chair.
Pardon?
Janet McCarroll has her hand up.
Yes, I just noticed Janet there. Right, Grant? Chair of the Community Board arrangements. Expression of interest received from Susan Drummond. A case to chair on a rotational basis. Is Susan here?
Yes, I am.
Right. Susan, could you just give us a couple of minute briefing on
Who I am.
who you are?
Thanks, Bill.
And where do you stay, and
Sure, okay.
just how you want to be involved.
I work for Kilsyth, so they're my host organisation, and I actually work for the North Locality Consortium. So my whole remit is for Cumbernauld, Kilsyth and the villages, Moodiesburn, the whole wide area. So I started in February, so this is just me kind of reaching out to get to know all the communities, and I thought a nice way would be to chair rotationally chair the Kilsyth Community Board. In terms of where I stay, Cumbernauld, born and bred, so that's me. So I know Kilsyth not brilliantly, but I've been there, so that's my story.
Grant, thank you very much, Susan. Yes, I think if I'm correct, Matt, you could keep me right. The board needs to agree what the rotational period will be. Will it be every meeting? Will it be once a year or every 6 months? Or has the board got to agree that?
Yeah, the board's always got to agree that if we go down the road of having a rotational chair, that we decide you can determine that somebody does 1 or 2 cycles and then somebody else does 1 or 2 cycles. It's really a matter for the board to determine what the best way they want to undertake that.
Do we have time to do that? We'll have time to do that at the next meeting in December. Or do you want to do it just now?
I think with the expression of interest now, probably is better arranging for an agreement that we can sort it out between ourselves, between yourself, Bill, and Susan, as to how we can do it. We don't need to agree, as long as the board's happy of making that, taking that into the progress that, then we can sort out the arrangements for that at another
a later
time.
date.
Yeah,
Right,
we can
that's
sort that
good.
out. But as long as we agree to do it now, then we can pencil who's going to chair the next meeting, then the following meeting. There's no, we
Yeah.
don't want to. We'll try to make it as flexible as possible and as inclusive as possible for people to get involved in the process, rather than make it rigid and an approach like that. That's certainly the intention. But it's really up to the board to determine how they want to take that forward.
Right. So what we could do then is have a meeting with Susan and ourselves out with this meeting.
Yeah,
and
we
then
can do it. We
agree
can
that at the
facilitate that,
next
Bill.
board meeting. Good. Right. Welcome on board, Susan.
Thank you.
And I think,
Uh,
sorry, I was just going to apologies, Chair, and I was just going to, because obviously, it's really important for the council and the North Lanarkshire Partnership in general to ensure that we've got community bodies at the heart of the decision making here. So again, it's not necessarily a plea, but if there are other organisations who are here tonight, or are people listening on YouTube, or other groups who might want to become involved, that it's kind of open and we're transparent, but certainly having an opportunity to chair is giving local groups kind of a local identity, so that they can kind of move forward as well. And we are within the communities team and with other partners, there's certainly plenty of support and advice and encouragement we can give to individuals to kind of keep that to kind of moving and taking it forward, really. So Susan knows that she'll get the appropriate support to ensure that she's everything's in place. But absolutely, Matt's correct. We will kind of take that forward and look at what's appropriate.
Grant. Right. Any comments? No, I don't see anybody's hands up. Nothing on the chat bar. Right. Item 5, Head of Service. Nicole, you want to say anything?
Thank you, Chair. I really just wanted to offer an update from the kind of overview that I gave of the community champion role. For those not present last time at the board, the role of community champion is a new one, which the council has developed. And in a nutshell, it's to enable community boards to give input on the strategic direction of the council. I'm essentially your link direct with the council management team, and it's to try and deal with those more strategic matters. The day-to-day issues and matters can be dealt with via the usual channels, but this really is an opportunity for that direct linkage, both into the management team and back out the council management team. So the board may well be aware there was a consultation undertaken on our role and the aims and objectives of the community champions, circulated in July. The returns for those were back mid-August. There were a dozen responses received from boards, in the most part positive, with a couple of individual meetings being scheduled with my colleagues to discuss just some concerns being raised. But the key thing is that no significant changes or concerns have been raised. We'll proceed on the basis of what I detailed the last time we met. But we recognise as a team that the role is very much in its infancy. So we'll adapt and we'll flex the role over the coming months to make sure that it delivers for communities on its purpose. And the purpose being to improve the overall communication and the outcomes for local communities. So a paper will be taken to the council management team on the 28th of September, outlining the community champion role, as I discussed at our last meeting, and how it links with the overall Delivering for Communities programme for the council. Going forward, We will also meet as a collective of community champions, just to thrash out any issues that are common across the boards, to make sure that our approaches are really trying to get the best in terms of that linkage between the council and the boards, and that we truly are delivering. It'll enable the common issues, it'll enable an element of consistency, and hopefully that we can share best practice as well. So Chair, that was just a very brief update in terms of where we are in developing the role that I now hold as community champion alongside my colleagues.
Thank you very much, Nicole. Has anybody got any questions to Nicole on the community champion? No? Well, Nicole, I have only one question, or statement. I am really looking forward to seeing what the community champion's outfit's going to look like. Is it going to be like Catwoman or Superwoman or no?
Bill, I don't recall signing up for an outfit.
Oh, you want to read the memo? Did you not get the memo? Right, Nicole. Thank you very much.
As long as it's got a cape.
So long as it's got a cape. I thought you said a cake. Item 6. Maddie, would you like to?
Yes, I will. Somebody from the council's got my presentation to upload. Is that you, Christine?
Yeah, here we go.
That's it. It's working. Thank you, everybody, for letting me speak today on Action on Climate Together North Lanarkshire. As you can see, it's a North Lanarkshire Partnership Initiative. So although I'm CEO of Voluntary Action North Lanarkshire, I'm actually speaking on behalf of the Strategic Leadership Board. And this presentation, I'm going to keep as short as possible. If I could go to the next slide, please. It's a big issue, but I will be brief and there'll be time for questions. I'm going to say a few words about the climate emergency. Most people will have some understanding of it, I'm sure, but I've just got a couple of slides that I'll speak to briefly just to clarify why we're in a climate emergency and say a little bit about some of the implications of that. I'm going to then look at Act Now and focus in the last few slides on community-led climate action, which obviously relates to the community board. So I will move on to the next slide now, please. And the next one. So this diagram, which looks complicated, is not. I actually want to apologise for a few of my council colleagues who've heard this presentation quite a few times at different boards, by the way. Anyway, so this diagram with a thermometer is the climate action tracker, and it shows in the, you can see the bold arrow where it says we are here at 1.2 centigrade warming as of 2020. And you'll all have probably heard of the Paris Agreement from 2015, where we have got our international governments agreeing that we should not go above 1.5 centigrade in global warming to mitigate the worst impacts of climate change. As you know, climate change is already with us. The tracker shows in the boxes above, however, that with current policies, pledges and targets, we're heading for way above 1.5. And this is obviously very concerning. And as you'll already know from the news and our own experience in Scotland, that global warming caused by emissions of carbon and other greenhouse gases are causing enormous problems across the planet. Could I have the next slide, please? And the reason this happens is because as we emit carbon and greenhouse gases such as methane from human activities through industry, production of fossil fuels, gas, oil, and transport and so on, we emit carbon and other gases into our atmosphere, which creates a sort of blanket, which are those clouds that trap heat that can't be released from the planet into the atmosphere. And that's effectively what's causing our problem. It's called the greenhouse effect or global warming. And the only way that we can change this is to reduce our carbon emissions. Could I have the next slide, please? And already severe impacts of global warming are with us, and we've seen in the news recently about flooding in Central Europe, wildfires in Europe as well, but also in Canada and North America and also Siberia, which are already reaching the North Pole. So these are very serious impacts, and some people might think these are far away, but it's happening in Scotland as well. We haven't yet had some of the worst extremes, but we have had flooding. We're having increasing temperatures in our summer. We've already had heat-related deaths in Scotland, and the predictions are that we're going to have a warmer, wetter climate. And you might think for a temperate country like Scotland, that might be good news, but actually across the world, there's going to be more and more of these severe climate events. So it's not good news for anybody, because also we are a connected planet and we rely on other countries, for example, to produce a lot of the food we consume. And also, obviously, in solidarity, we don't want other places to have these tragic events. Could I have the next slide, please? And that might seem very gloomy, but it's really important that people understand that this is a really serious situation that we're in, and we don't have that many years to turn it around. But there is hope. We have increasing mobilization of public opinion and voice to press politicians to act now. And as you know, we have COP26 coming to Glasgow in November, which is seen really as the last chance for international governments to commit to measures at national and international level that will reduce carbon emissions to keep within the 1.5% growth. Young people in particular are mobilising and making their voice heard. We also have positive initiatives across Scotland, across the UK and internationally on things like community renewable energy schemes and also rewilding community gardens and woodlands. And we do some of these things in North Lanarkshire, and we can do more, but we, for example, have already youth climate ambassadors in North Lanarkshire. We have some renewable energy schemes in North Lanarkshire, mostly only about 10, most run by the council, some by farms and one by business, but we don't have, as far as I can see, any community-led renewable energy schemes. We do, however, in North Lanarkshire have quite a number of greening initiatives at community level, and we can and need to do more. Could I have the next slide, please? So I'm going to just move on now to the Act Now initiative, and if we can go on to the next slide. So as you all know, North Lanarkshire Partnership is a cross-sector partnership involving all of the organisations you can see on the slide. Community planning has a statutory basis. We're required to work together to improve lives, and we also support the delivery of the plan for North Lanarkshire, and you as community boards are developing and will implement the local outcome improvement plans with support. And the Act Now initiative is a priority for the partnership, and I summarise here in the aims and objectives and principles of the initiative. It's really important to emphasise that action on climate isn't something separate from everything else we do. It has to be completely part of our economic planning to reduce carbon emissions, and it has to also support an inclusive transition to a low carbon society, creating jobs, helping tackle poverty, as well as improve the environment. So we talk about a very sort of integrated approach to climate action. Could I have the next slide, please? And the public sector already in Scotland and in North Lanarkshire are required by law to achieve net zero by 2045. The council declared a climate emergency, as you may all know, in 2019 and set a target of net zero for the council and hopefully the rest of North Lanarkshire by 2030, 15 years ahead of the Scottish Government target. So just to reassure you, the public sector, that's NHS Lanarkshire, as well as police, fire and rescue and the council, are working to fulfil their obligations to reduce carbon emissions across all of their activities. The business sector in North Lanarkshire needs to do more and needs to be supported to do more. There aren't the same legal requirements on the business sector, though that may change very soon. Some organisations in North Lanarkshire are ahead of the curve. We have some real exemplars who are moving towards net zero. The council is organising a business sector event on the 22nd of September to promote climate action, and Act Now will be launched at that event, and we're hoping that over time the council's enterprise team and others will be able to support this business sector in North Lanarkshire. I'm speaking today and want to focus particularly on what residents in the community and voluntary sector can do, and I'm going to say more about that in the next few slides, which are my last slides. And overall, delivery is supported by a cross-sector coordinating group for Act Now, which I convene and chair. Vanal is the lead and host organisation for the Act Now initiative. Next slide, please. So the key issue here is to work with community and voluntary sector and residents to build capacity for them to take local climate action. We're already doing some of it. We've got some great examples already in North Lanarkshire, but we need to do more. The UK government's climate change committee has advised that about 50% of the changes that we need to see in carbon reduction in carbon emissions has to come from us as individual families and communities reducing the carbon emissions that we produce through our behaviours and lifestyle, our travel, our diet, and so on, what we consume. So it complements and is very important to support community action to complement that taken by the public sector. So some of the things that we want to encourage is Act Now champions at local level, supporting the youth climate ambassadors we already have. I'm keen to see for each of the 9 community board areas an Act Now locality group where local residents and community and voluntary sector organisations can decide their local priorities, what they want to do on community action, and can be supported with resources and guidance as needed. The good news is we've already had for many years across North Lanarkshire eco schools. Pretty much all the primary schools in North Lanarkshire identify as eco schools, not as many of the secondary schools. They're not all formally accredited, but we can build on that. It means that a lot of our children and young people know a great deal about this and are quite passionate, so we should connect in with the eco schools. And working together, raise awareness about climate emergency across our communities, because the more people that are aware and understand how important it is to make changes in our lives, the more chance we've got of reaching net zero in North Lanarkshire by 2030. And that awareness will lead to community climate action. I'm going to say in my last slide a little bit more about the types of action that are already happening and we can build on in North Lanarkshire. But say a few words about the community and voluntary sector generally. Vanal will be working with the community and voluntary sector through our sector biodiversity and climate emergency network to support community and voluntary sector organisations achieve net zero. The kind of things that they're going to need to look at are things like their travel, the kind of things that they consume in terms of office equipment and so on. So we will be supporting them, much like the council's enterprise team will be supporting the business sector. Could I have the last slide, please, or the penultimate slide? So these are the kinds of things that are already happening that we need to build on. It would be really great to get your thoughts about what you might want to do in your locality. I've mentioned already community voice to raise awareness, but also to advocate for action by others. So if you build profile locally about climate emergency and support others to take action, that's really important. I've touched on examples of renewable energy schemes and community woodlands and green spaces. What can we do to support more green travel, green and active travel, supporting people to walk and cycle more, and also looking at, say, community transport. I know that in 1 or 2 of the community organisations across North Lanarkshire, they've raised money to buy an electric minibuses for their community transport schemes. We need to look at community sharing and upcycling schemes. Not that long ago, last year, or maybe it was the year before, somebody set up a social enterprise in Cumbernauld for a tool library. Sadly, it didn't work and it's closed down. But these are the kinds of things that we need to do more of. And tool libraries are great examples. Most people use a drill maybe once or twice every few years, and yet everybody often buys these tools and has them in a cupboard stored away. So there's a lot of things that we can do to have community sharing or lending libraries for products that we use rarely. And also we need to reuse and throw away less, which we can do through upcycling schemes. And I want to just conclude on diet. One of the biggest contributors to carbon emissions is actually the farming of meat. And so it's important to encourage people to eat more plants as part of their diet. We're not saying don't eat meat, but to eat more plants. So what can we do at community level to help people make that change? So those are just some ideas. There will be others. And already there are case studies of good practice across North Lanarkshire in all of these areas and more widely across Scotland that we can learn from. And just to conclude with the last slide, please. You can find more information about Act Now on the website. We launched that recently. We have the Act Now plan and a supporting briefing. We have a list of useful resources. We have case studies of climate action in North Lanarkshire. And we've also launched in August our monthly bulletin, which you can subscribe to on the site. And just by way of final conclusion, we're having a community launch event on the 29th of September. I did ask colleagues in the Council's Communities team to send that invite out to all community board members, so I hope you've received that. What we're going to be doing at that event is having 9 locality groups where people who join that event will be able to break up after a presentation into the locality group to start talking about what they want to do locally. And I'm hoping that that will maybe kickstart the formation of local Act Now groups. And if any of you would like to help us facilitate the workshop for your area, I'd be really grateful if you could let me know, because we haven't yet identified anybody for your area, and that would be really useful. Thank you so much. I'll happily take any questions at this time. Hi, Bill, I finished.
You're on mute, Bill.
Yeah, right. There you go. Right. Thanks very much, Maddie. Has anybody got any questions for Maddie?
I am looking for someone who might volunteer from Kilsyth to be a facilitator for our event on the 29th of September in one of the workshops. If
Alan
anybody's
Stevenson's raised a
interested.
hand, Chair.
Alan?
That was clever. I'd actually raised my hand to ask a question. I got caught out there.
Oh, it's okay.
Yeah, some interesting stuff there. Do you have any data on the volume of material that goes from the brown compostable bins to, I presume there's the biodigesters, and is there a method of harvesting the methane that's given off from that and reusing it?
Well, I don't have that information. I don't know if anybody here does, but I'm sure that the council will have some of that information, and I'm sure there's some technical information around capturing methane from composting material. Is there anybody here who has more information on that? And if not, I'm sure it can be found out and shared.
Chair, I'm sure we can certainly ask a question and make sure we feedback on that.
Mm-hmm. It might be interesting to
yeah,
to invite along. There's a local farmer based in Allenfold who has built a small hydroelectric scheme.
Yes, that would be the one I saw, Alan, on the there's a Scottish community renewable energy schemes, and I saw that there was one farmer. Do you think that's the one?
It could well be, and slightly further down the Garrel Burn, there's a smaller one at Black Mill, both of which I think are connected into the grid.
Yeah.
Very, very good examples of producing energy in a very clean way using the natural flow of water down the hill. It might be interesting to get some more details of that.
It would, Alan, and also what's really good is that you could have community-run renewable energy schemes that actually, as you say, connect to the grid and bring income into the community. So they are good ideas if there's interest and they can be developed. We've only got about 10 in North Lanarkshire at the moment, but I'm sure we could have more. So thanks for that, Alan. That's really helpful. And you haven't volunteered then, Alan, to facilitate this workshop on the 29th. Was that right?
I'll think about it.
You'll think about it. Good. I've put Munro Fraser's my colleague who's here today. He's the Act Now project assistant. I've put his email up there, and you can easily find him or I as well through Van Al's website or the Act Now website.
There's Maddie. It'll be of interest to you. That's the two power generating stations in Kilsyth, but we have on the industrial estate a company called Kestrel Controls.
Oh, right.
They specialise in the establishment and creation of these power generating facilities. They do them all over Scotland. So John Fullerton's extremely knowledgeable on that function.
That's really useful to know. We're always trying to find and connect with businesses in North Lanarkshire that are working either in the renewable space or positive role models around net zero. And we have some really good examples. So that's helpful to know. Thank you.
If you need contacts for them, just let me know.
Yes, I think we would like those contacts. Thank you. And I'm fairly sure our enterprise colleagues in the council will maybe have links with them as well, and we work very closely with them. After all, as I said at the beginning, this is a partnership initiative, so thank you.
Okay. Just to give you the other couple of elements that's going on in Kilsyth is that Kilsyth Community Council, the Kilsyth and Villages Community Forum and the Rotary Club of Kilsyth combined together to form the Kilsyth Environmental Group.
Mm-hmm.
So we've just started, and we meet every second Saturday of the month and do that kind of work.
Well, that's fantastic, because maybe then that is the bait. You know, we don't need to set up a new group. If there's already an existing group,
Yes.
then working with that group and building on it. And I know some of the community boards have also set up environmental subgroups anyway. And obviously looking at climate emergency is obviously partly an environmental issue, but it's wider than that. As I said in my presentation, we need to be looking at our economic activity and so on, but it ties in really well to a lot of the greening work and conservation work. Interestingly, the network that we set up in 2019 for the community and voluntary sector in North Lanarkshire on climate emergency, the members wanted to change it to biodiversity and climate because those issues are so interlinked, obviously. Yeah. So it's be really good to hear about that environmental group in Kilsyth, Bill, and it'd be good to make contact with them and see how we can connect up.
I'll let you know the details.
Thank you.
And the other thing is that Kilsyth Rotary Club this winter will be planting, well, we had agreed to plant 1,000 trees, but depending on the cost, it'll be anything between 750 and 1,000 trees in Kilsyth as a community woodland.
That's brilliant. And I know that one of the issues around community woodland obviously is what type of trees, the habitat, the soil, and also maintenance. So it'd be really interesting to find out more, because often community groups are passionate about planting trees, but all of those other issues, as you probably know, need to be looked at. And yeah, so really good to hear that, because I think community woodlands are often very successful in terms of providing amenity, but also they will contribute. Ultimately, it'll take a while, but they will sequester carbon. So that's really good as well.
Yes. And Nicole It just dawned on me there, Nicole, you might be able to get rid of some of your green open space someplace in Kilsyth, because we could plant it up with trees. Save you cutting the grass.
Well, Bill, happy to have discussions on appropriate planting, trees, wildflowers. There's a conversation we can have.
Yes.
That would be great, Nicole. Because I think the other thing is we do talk a lot about planting trees, but of course it's not just about trees. It's different habitats, and soil sequesters carbon as well, and so does peat. And so there's lots of opportunities. I know that one of your sister organisation, or one of our community and voluntary sector organisations in Northern Corridor, are very, very active in this space as well. We've got quite a lot of community interest. So, and I had a meeting recently as well with colleagues of yours, Nicole, and Des Murray, to talk about the Clyde Climate Forest and community woodlands. And there's also this initiative that the Queen's Canopy as well, which is children in North Lanarkshire are going to be involved in planting trees. So there's a lot going on in that space. And what we need to do is join up the dots and make sure that communities have the opportunity to take forward initiatives, Bill, like the one that you've described.
Good, good.
Well, Chair, if I might just add, Maddie's absolutely correct, and it's about the variety. I know that people tend to jump towards trees, but trees are excellent, but they have long-term implications for the council as well. What we'd like to do is look at the most appropriate management of green spaces in each particular place, because there's lots and lots of options which are much more climate friendly that we can enact. And some of that you can do as a community board, and some of that we can do as a council at scale. So I'd be more than happy to be part of those conversations with the teams.
That's good. That's good. Well, thank you very much, Maddie. That was quite fascinating.
Well, thank you all, and thank you for your interest and engagement, as this is obviously such an important issue for all of us. Thank you.
Right. We'll keep in touch, and I'll send you what information I've got.
Thank you.
Right. You're welcome to stay and join the rest of the meeting, Maddie.
Thank you. I will stay a bit, but believe it or not, I'm actually doing this presentation to all 9 community boards, so I think I might not stay the whole meeting.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Item 7, Lynn, you're going to give us an update on the digital locality.
Yes, and like Maddie, I'm doing this to all 9 boards as well. So Maddie, I'm so sorry. This is the 6th time you've heard this. Thank you very much. Chair.
No worries.
Good evening, everyone. Delighted to be here tonight. Thanks very much for allowing me to join your board, just to provide a quick update on driving digital locally. My name's Lynn Gow. I'm the Communication and Engagement Lead for the Council's Digital NL programme. You might recall that back in at your board meeting in March, one of my colleagues came along and they delivered a presentation on the digital NL plans. So through the digital NL, Council aims to provide online anytime services which meets the needs of our residents. However, we need to really truly understand what those needs are, and as such, we've now launched the Driving Digital Locally framework. So I just wanted to update you tonight on the progress with that. You might recall at the end of the presentation back in March, our ask was for volunteers to join our newly created digital subgroup. The purpose of this group was to maximise the use of digital services for communities across North Lanarkshire and to try to drive effective collaboration and engagement within these communities to help us develop this Driving Digital Locally framework. I'm delighted to say that we did receive quite a number of volunteers for the group. It's made up of reps from across all 9 board areas, and we're going to meet on a monthly basis. The initial meeting took place on the 12th of August and was chaired by Councillor Duffy in his role as convener for Transformation and Digitisation Committee. I developed a draft terms of reference for that group, and it was presented at approved at our digital NL delivery board back in June. So I then presented it to our digital subgroup last month, and following some feedback from the group, it will be presented for final approval at next month's meeting. At the meeting, we also agreed that the best way forward for the group would be to have a rolling chair and vice chair. And also part of the agenda was for the group to try to agree what the key priorities would be for the group going forward. So some of the priorities that came out of that discussion was access to public digital skills within the community, avoiding duplication of digital services within each community, and to try to support training within each of the communities. There was also further discussion during the breakout sessions which focused on supporting early action to achieve a better understanding of what digital inclusion really means within our 9 community board areas and also across our equalities groups, and looking at ongoing action to support the local work linked to the LOIPs. Since the meeting, myself and our chair has done a bit of a mapping exercise to ensure that we've got the right representation on the digital subgroup, and we agreed that each area would put forward 2 reps from each of the board. And Alan Stevenson from the Kilsyth board, thank you very much, Alan. He has agreed to join the digital subgroup, and I'm still looking for 1 person from Kilsyth. So happy to chat with MD offline about that. The role of the group member is to act as an ambassador and to go back to your own area to help support the group. And just as I say, we've only met once, and as the group progresses, I'll keep the board updated, or the representative on the subgroup will keep the board updated as the months go on. I took part in a digital inclusion seminar, an excellent seminar hosted by the Digital North Lanarkshire Partnership and chaired by the Council's Chief Executive Des Murray back in June. It was aimed at those in the partnership and other organisations to explore how we can all work together more effectively to increase digital inclusion in North Lanarkshire, and also to reaffirm the commitment to the Digital North Lanarkshire Partnership. We split the delegates into workshops to discuss key actions that we need to take to accelerate digital inclusion. Now, the final report on the seminar is not yet published, but it is coming, Maddie, I'm sure in a couple of weeks it's going to be published. However, early overarching themes that were identified were increased knowledge of digital skills needs amongst communities, and a digital skills action plan was suggested and discussed in one of the groups. Increased investment, especially around infrastructure, and better collaboration amongst partner organisations. Now, all of these key actions will be taken forward by the Digital North Lanarkshire Partnership. And I think it was a great seminar, and I definitely think that it's something that can be replicated at a community board level, and it's definitely worth discussing. And just finally tonight, you'll be pleased to know, I've been working with the Council Service Integrator Partner Agilysys and also my colleagues in Housing Solutions on a new project to target our older residents of retirement complexes and sheltered housing complexes, to help them to get online and to adopt new technologies to help with their loneliness, improve their overall happiness and their well-being. And this project is going to be funded through Connected Scotland. And I'm actually delighted to say that this week we've taken delivery of 200 new, brand spanking new iPads and 100 MiFi boxes for the project. At the moment, we've got around 100 residents, and those devices will be going out to them between this week and next week. We're also going to be tying that in with the Council's Community Champions project. They'll be supporting the elderly people when they get the devices to get them online, download apps, video call, all these things that a lot of younger people and a lot of other people take for granted. Also working with our colleagues in education to try to bring the youth on board as well, and to try develop an intergenerational programme for this. Now that's at really early stages, and again I can keep the board up to date as this progresses. And I think that's my update for tonight. Happy to take any questions. However, my ask at the end of this presentation is that if someone from Kilsyth would like to join the digital subgroup, I'd be delighted to talk to you offline. Thanks very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, Lynn. Any questions to Lynn? Observations or
Anything?
Alan?
Yes, certainly one of the things that was discussed at this meeting was the the communication and how best to communicate through digital media And can I give everybody a little piece of homework? I would like you all to try and report a missing bin. Now,
Right,
try it through the North Lanarkshire website, and then have a go through Northline. And maybe next time we meet, come back and see how you get on. There are, if we're going to have a website, a council website, and we're going to more and more utilise it, it has to be user friendly, it has to be simple. And there are aspects of it just now which are diabolical, and it needs an overhaul. I can speak from experience about this. The other thing is Digital NL going to be a source of information for community groups? So if we are looking for help, who do we go to? Do we go to Digital NL as a go-to organisation?
The Digital NL is not an organisation. The Digital NL is an internal. It's driving digital locally, but you could be getting confused with the Digital North Lanarkshire Partnership, which is made up of Council, VANL, NHS, Health and Social Care. However, this is one of the reasons, Alan, why we set up the digital subgroup, because it would have representatives from all communities within it, and that would be your first port of call. And we would be linking directly in with the LOIPs as well.
Could I just come in on that answer as well?
Maddie.
Yeah, is that okay? Yeah, just to clarify, thank you for that, Lynn. In terms of community and voluntary sector support, Alan, rather than community boards per se, although VANL does also directly provide support on digital skills and issues directly to the sector. And so I just wanted to emphasise that, and thanks, Lynn, for clarifying. The Digital NL Inclusion Partnership works across North Lanarkshire in communities, and that involves the council with libraries, as well as the community and learning development team, VANL, and about 30 plus community and voluntary sector groups, New College Lanarkshire. So all of them are supporting digital inclusion. And the seminar that Lynn referred to actually was organised by VANL actually on behalf of Digital NL, and the report, Lynn, it's ready. I'm just waiting for one presenter to sign off there. It's all ready to go. So yeah, there's a lot of support out there, and I think there's going to be more resources being invested into digital inclusion in the community. I'm sure that the council would like to put more in, but it's stretched. But I think there's going to be more resources nationally. I think, Lynn, do you think so? There's Connecting Scotland, but I think this is going to grow and grow. I was just reading today, actually, that the Finance and Economy Minister was saying that they've put in 100 million into digital development for the business sector, was in the paper today. Well, I would like to see a little bit of that come up the way of the voluntary sector, please. But I think there will be monies coming our way. And I suppose, Lynn, it's important to emphasise as well how much the schools do for the younger generation, I mean, as part of curriculum. So there's so much going on in this space in North Lanarkshire. And Lynn, I'm aware as well that there's this, I know it's not public yet, but the council's tended to get support, hasn't it, on improving the infrastructure, where there'll be more access to Wi-Fi in public spaces and so on, won't there?
Yes, I think that the tender is out for the connectivity partner. Yep, definitely.
Right, thank you very much. Any other questions to Lynn? Just a couple of things, Lynn.
Yeah.
One is, and I don't know who's involved, but school emails, contacting the schools. One of the things that we've had a huge difficulty in the last month or so, and particularly the last few days, and it might not fall under your remit, but the school email contacts have changed. From HTI, the H go to the head teacher, that's changed, and they've had 2 emails. Each school's had 2 different emails in a matter of weeks, and the new ones that we got yesterday are not working. The only way we can get in touch with school is to get like one of the office staff's email, like the secretary's email, own email, to be able to send information to the school. And the school's missing out a lot on the Rotary aspect of it, because Rotary's got a primary school public speaking competition, they've got a primary school quiz and various other things. So that's one that I'll follow up out with this meeting anyway.
Yep.
But it might
Bill,
be
is
your
that
role,
a
it might
single
not
school
be.
issue or an all schools issue?
They're changing all the school emails in North Lanarkshire, and they're all seem to be having. I tried to get in touch with St Maurice's, and it just bounced back. We tried at the weekend, and it just with old emails, and it just bounced back.
Chair, can I just clarify that? What they're
Oh, yes.
sorry, Bill. Sorry, Chair.
Okay.
Just to clarify that the schools have now been, their email system is now going to link to their Glow accounts.
That's correct.
So, and that's it is quite a big address, to be fair, for each school, depending on obviously where it is. But yes, so that's the system they're using, and because I tried it I tried it a wee while as well. So I know they've been kind of there have been some tweaks.
Some technical problems, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure they'll get sorted out at the end of the day. We're lucky that we can just print it off and go and deliver it to the schools, because they're all close enough for us to deal with. The other thing, Lynn, is just to let you know, Maddie might be interested as well, is the Rotary Club in Kilsyth donated 10 Amazon Fire tablets just in the last month or so. 5 went to the Victoria Cottage Hospital, and 5 went to the Craigengoyne care home. We'd already donated 2 previously Amazon Fire tablets to the Cottage Hospital last year. So we're trying to get the Cottage Hospital residents and Craigengoyne to start using them. And Craigengoyne in particular has been very active on them. I know that Cottage Hospital, they had a problem with their broadband, but a couple of weeks ago that was to be sorted out.
Can I just can I just in response to that, Bill, see when you're saying that you donate them to you've donated them, which is great, do you put in like someone to help them to get online, to help them how they use the tablet, or does the hospital and the care home actually do that?
Well, we've not been able. We would normally have done that. We did that on the first 2 to the Cottage Hospital a year or so ago.
But because of COVID, you can't get any restrictions. Yeah.
So we've been fortunate that at each establishment there has been somebody there. They're not blank tablets. They've actually been set up with software to relate to those people with Alzheimer's or disabilities.
Yeah.
Many of them are using them to attend their church service, etc. So they're being well used. So
good.
It's our attention to keep working in that area anyway.
Great. Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much indeed, Lynn. If there's nothing else for Lynn, grand. Margaret. Margaret Kelly.
Thanks,
Your
Chair.
presentation. Yes.
Yeah, I'll just open it up just now. Thank you. Okay, thanks everyone for enabling the opportunity for me to come along this evening and to give you a very, very brief update on where we're at with the local housing strategy, the draft local housing strategy. I'll try and keep it extremely brief. I know you've got a really busy, jam-packed agenda tonight. So the presentation tonight will cover a brief bit of background in terms of the draft strategy. what we are trying to achieve, outline some of the key priorities and actions, our next steps, and then hopefully some opportunity for discussion. So in terms of some background, to develop the draft local housing strategy, we carried out a review of local and national evidence. We're currently in the process of carrying out a housing need and demand assessment, a refreshed housing need and demand assessment, and that gives us an overview in terms of the number of houses that we need across 10 years. We carried out consultation in round one to identify what the key housing challenges and priorities are in North Lanarkshire, both currently but for the next 5-year period. And that involved a broad range of consultations, some early face-to-face consultation, and then a lot of online consultation following the onset of the pandemic. And that resulted in the draft local housing strategy being published in June this year for formal consultation. The consultation was officially supposed to close on Monday this week, but given that we are presenting an update at this round of community board meetings, we have extended the consultation period until next Tuesday to enable the opportunity for anyone who hasn't had the chance to read the draft strategy or complete the online survey to do so. So what are we trying to achieve in North Lanarkshire? We want to make North Lanarkshire the place to live through the provision of high quality housing and support in sustainable communities that enables people to thrive and prosper. The overarching vision is underpinned by 7 strategic housing outcomes, and they cover the main areas in terms of housing issues and challenges. So that's housing delivery, sustainable communities, tackling homelessness, independent living and promoting health and well-being, tackling climate change and fuel poverty, improving house condition, and improving the quality and accessibility of the private rented sector. So in terms of meeting housing needs, what do we want to do? Well, we ultimately want to ensure that everyone has access to a home that is affordable and meets their individual needs and is also in a place that they want to stay. So we aim to deliver and increase access to a much broader range of housing tenures and also develop a self-build register, which is new in terms of local housing strategies, and also consider ways in which we can use planning policy and land to support this. We will continue to deliver high quality new affordable homes, and many of you will be familiar that we already have one of the most ambitious council new build programmes across Scotland, with a target of 5,000 council homes to be delivered by 2035. And within the next 5-year period, we have a target of 3,000 affordable homes, both council and RSL outlined in our Strategic Housing Investment Programme. Within our aspirations to continue to deliver affordable housing, we will also increase, importantly, the provision of wheelchair and accessible homes. And we will also work with private developers to increase the number of wheelchair homes in the private sector, recognising that this is a key area for us going forward to help meet needs. To help us increase our ambitious supply of new homes, we intend to expand the use of open market purchase scheme to increase the supply, which will also help us address issues such as long-term empty properties and helps enable common works and mixed tenure blocks. And in our collaborative efforts with our partners to tackle homelessness, we will improve access to permanent housing, reduce time spent in temporary accommodation, and provide wraparound support for people with complex needs. So in terms of sustainable communities, we recognise that in order for communities to thrive, homes and places need to work in tandem. And our actions focus very much on delivering more for new and existing communities through supporting the delivery of homes in our town centres and progressing our tower reprovisioning programme. And by working with our partners and other services, we will locate homes closer to services, facilities and transport links so that homes are well connected and support wellbeing. In terms of improving house condition, we want to ensure that our homes are high quality but also energy efficient. So we'll continue to implement energy efficiency improvements in our own housing stock to reduce our carbon emissions and work towards the Council's net zero target of 2030. We will improve access to information and advice and implement the range of actions set out in the Council's Housing Asset Management Plan to improve the standard and quality of our homes. And for the private sector, we will work with owner-occupiers and private landlords to improve compliance and to look at ways in which we can help support owners and private landlords address disrepair and maintenance issues, but also to take some preparatory actions ahead of new energy efficiency regulations coming into force. So our next steps, we will complete this current phase of consultation. As I said, the consultation has spanned 12 weeks so far. We will use all the feedback we've received so far, including the feedback from yourselves, from the earlier community board meetings in November, and also from all the feedback we've received via other methods to inform a final local housing strategy. We anticipate then to seek committee approval in November, pending feedback from Scottish Government, and then adoption later on in this year. A few links for you, but I'll post those in the chat bar. So if you haven't had the opportunity to view the strategy, that's just a link to the webpage and the online survey. And thanks for listening. And hopefully that's been a very short overview, but has been sufficient in terms of quick overview.
Thank you very much, Margaret. Excellent the way that you did that, and shortened it. I was at your previous one with the Federation, so I got a lot more information. So yes, has anybody got any questions for Margaret? Oh, you're off the hook there, Margaret. And oh, Alan.
Yes, I was just wondering what steps are the council taking to update houses with the new fire regulation equipment, which I believe is to be in position by February. I imagine the new builds have got it, but is there some kind of rolling system whereby older properties are being upgraded?
Yes, you are right, Alan. There are regulations in place in terms of new build properties, in terms of sprinkler systems, but we're also taking a lot of proactive measures in terms of our existing housing stock. And I spoke very briefly about the tower reprovisioning programme, but that's just one example of it, where we're implementing a range of fire prevention and stopping methods within the tower blocks to enhance the safety and security for tenants going forward. So things like fire doors and lots of other fire prevention methods. We obviously are very much guided by regulations, so we keep abreast of any new regulations and updates that come out from Scottish Government, and we review our programme of works with our property section. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, just wondering whether there are a lot of properties that require the upgrade of the heat sensor and the smoke alarms, plus the carbon monoxide sensor, which are I imagine some of the older properties won't have the linked systems.
That's correct. Yeah, there is new regulations coming into force next year. I think actually there is actually adverts on TV now about them in terms of promoting awareness, and that applies, across the board, across tenures. So it's for owner occupiers, it's for private landlords, it's for social housing, and there will be a requirement for smoke alarms to be interlinked and connected, so that if one goes off, the full all of the smoke alarms go off, and as you've pointed out, Alan, for a heat detector as well in particular spaces. There will be some focused communications going out around that, so that the council will be undertaking that, and we have actually highlighted some of that in terms of our local housing strategy. So yes, it's something that we have to take forward across tenures, not just in social housing. So yes, there'll be some work to be undertaken across the board, and a significant piece of communication to be carried out as well to raise awareness with the general public.
Margaret, will you be coming into Kilsyth? Will housing mayors and that be coming into Kilsyth to fit out council houses with all that equipment before the deadline next year?
We have a programmed period of work, Chair. So we will be ensuring that we will meet regulations. So
Right.
yeah.
Grand. Lovely. Any other questions to?
And Bill,
Margaret?
just to say, there are properties that have already been done locally
Yes.
on that programme. So it's not that Kilsyth and villages are on a list waiting to be done, as is all done. They're working across the authority at the same time. So I know people locally who have had it done.
Mm-hmm. Right. Thanks very much, Heather. Thanks very much indeed, Margaret, for that presentation. The match flexible funding.
Thanks, Chair. Just to briefly refer to the report that was issued with the papers, it's the update on the report that was previously delivered to the Community Board, demonstrating the additional funding that's been made available through the flexible funding arrangements across a wide range of areas of work and recipients. And the report shows the work was undertaken in relation to the communities team, community learning and development colleagues, and colleagues in financial inclusion, and some of the beneficiaries from the funding that's been invested in those areas. Appendix 1 shows the funding for local community groups who were awarded funding earlier this year in relation to the flexible fund applications. And it's just to make people aware that there's currently a further round of funding ongoing at the moment in relation to digital inclusion, encouraging local groups who could benefit from having additional devices for using within their own organisations. And there's a fund at the moment that we're managing through the communities team for up to £1,000 grant available to local community groups. We're encouraging applications to come in by the 6th of September in relation to that. And just to pick up on one of the points was raised earlier regarding training, one of the other aspects of this is to provide further training for local community groups in the use and most effective use of digital and IT equipment for their local organisations, and an element of train the trainer that could benefit communities more widely as well. So that's just an update on that particular report, Chair.
Thank you very much, Matt. Has anybody got any questions to Matt on his report? I see.
Chair, sorry, Chair, again, it's me. I was just going to say that, if there's still time to put in the applications. I think Matt might mention the 6th of September is the closing date. So if organisations have got any, they want to apply, I'm sure the application was sent out with some support and information, but if not, I can send it out, or you can email me and I'll send it out to you. I mean, obviously time's kind of moving on, but it's a worthwhile fund, and we want the money to be getting into the community. So I'll maybe try and share that information with everybody tomorrow, so that if you haven't got it, you can get it and have a quick look at it. The application itself isn't very difficult, I would say. Sorry, Chair.
That's okay, Colin. Thanks very much for that. Will this flexible fund be available again later on in the year or next year, or do you know?
At the moment, no, it won't be any further funding, Chair. That's
right.
This is the last of the fund at this stage.
It's a one-off, right?
Yep.
Grand. Thank you very much. The community partnership updates, item 10, board development sessions. Matt.
Yeah, thanks again, Chair, myself again. As you're aware, we discussed this at the last board in terms of the training needs assessment and how we're going to take that forward in relation to the community board development. We've carried out a survey with a large number of board representatives. To date, we've had about 26% feedback on board members who have participated in that. And just initially to highlight some of the main areas of development that have been considered just now, a further report will come to the community board that will give a more detailed timetable of how we're going to roll out the community board training and further development going forward. But because we extended the training need assessment questionnaire, we're just giving an interim update at this stage in relation to what the kind of feedback we're getting at the moment. So some of the main areas for development have been identified currently are community asset transfer, participate in the budgeting, local development programme, local outcome improvement plans, the budget processes, partnership working in general, with other areas that have been picked up on about some general discussion in relation to managing conflict, managing priorities, and how we better encourage seldom heard groups within the local community boards. So as that timetable is developed, further communication will be carried out with all the boards, and further information about in detailed reports will come back to the community boards in the future, as I say, with a further timetable and an idea of when actual training events will take place. So on that one, Chair.
Thank you very much, Matt. Has anybody got any questions to Matt on the development programme, or how should we get involved in it? I hope that when it does come out and it's available, that everybody locally will participate in it. It's quite, well, it depends what you find fascinating, but I find it quite interesting, some of the systems and the procedures that we've got to go through in local government. You're on again, Matt, local development programme.
Sure, Chair. Just this report again, just to highlight the work that's been undertaken in relation to prioritisation of local development programme projects. So there's some details there within the report. Just to update that we've now recruited a project development officer and a project support assistant within the communities team, who will have a responsibility for driving forward projects through consultations, tendering processes, etc., through to ultimate delivery of projects going forward. There's one point in particular I wanted to raise, we kind of alluded to it earlier, in relation to the CCTV, and it's one of the projects that we spoke about here, and there has been as I say, a fairly comprehensive survey carried out of the CCTV requirements in the area. We've identified 5 areas that would really benefit from additional CCTV, and the cost proposals at the moment are roughly just over the £80,000 mark for delivery of a fairly comprehensive CCTV package that covers from Brenny Road down to Garrow Vale in the area, identifying some quite clear hotspots of information in from the CCTV team who look at that. We've also had information in from Neil McLeod's team in terms of Police Scotland in relation to the issues they're experiencing across the area, and that's the kind of information we use to address or propose where is best to position those. In terms of the LDP, as you're aware, the funding for this area, it doesn't meet the £80,000 to carry that work out on this year one, and we are in discussions with other partners in the terms of making it a partnership approach to having funding for that, including our colleagues in active and creative communities, our colleagues in housing, and also in colleagues in other social housing providers in the area. So there is discussions ongoing to try and bolster that package, and if the community board is happy with us to progress with that for year one, we could look to try and pull that funding together and move to deliver that CCTV package within this financial year, Chair.
Thank you very much, Matt. Any questions to Matt on that report or any item in the report? Nope. Alan?
Now, going back to what I said, I mentioned earlier,
Yes.
is there any evidence as to how effective the CCTV is as a deterrent? Does Inspector McLeod have any perhaps observations on that? We have CCTV, for example, in the main street, but it doesn't seem to have deterred some of the antisocial behaviour there.
Sorry, Alan, can you just repeat exactly what the question was? I know it was on the topic of CCTV in the town centre.
Oh, right, yeah. What I was asking is, do you have any evidence as to how effective the CCTV is in deterring antisocial behaviour? There are constant incidences in the main street. Do you think it is acting as a deterrent? And how effective is it? Are you being able to pick up individuals who are contravening the law and deal with them?
Yeah, I think there are recent examples in particular in terms of acquisitive crime, be it shopliftings or thefts from vehicles parked nearby. We've then picked up the suspect from CCTV, so it's been particularly useful for incidents like that, and there's been numerous detections through that. In terms of specifically antisocial behaviour, that's more difficult to kind of measure. What it does do is it acts as the initial action taken. So if we receive a report, for instance, say it's shopkeepers or residents in the town centre of a group congregating near to the old bank, which is quite often the case, the first protocol is to call into the CCTV and have them review it. And what I have to say is, obviously part of my role is I review every incident for the 24 hours when I come in the morning. Very often it's the case when CCTV is checked, there is nowhere near the level of numbers that's called into this as per the incident. So that's very often the case. So that's what I mean when I say it's difficult to measure, because quite often the reports that we're getting in terms of the levels of antisocial behaviour is quite different to what we're actually seeing, be it through foot patrols or from CCTV.
Thank you, Neil. Sounds like a bit of a fisherman's story. Yes. Any other questions regarding the report? Okay.
Can I come back in very briefly, Chair?
Yes.
Just on Alan's point, and it's certainly the discussions we've had with our colleagues in the CCTV unit, we certainly, in conjunction with our partners in the police and Scottish Fire and Rescue, particularly, we can really link into the service there. We can ask our colleagues to monitor areas if we get complaints as we get through the communities team from time to time about particular issues in particular areas, and we have a lot of good monitoring work undertaken. They can focus on particular areas. There's also it's been really beneficial in terms of some court cases that have been used to support activity the police have been involved in, but also missing persons. It's a fantastic resource for people where people have been reported as missing, and their CCTV network has helped locate an awful lot of people in the area across. It's a very, very positive approach to community safety generally, and I think it's something that will benefit in this area as well. But we will pick up on the points we raised earlier and get further information in relation to the current provision. Thank you.
Grant, thanks very much, Matt. Okay, if there's nothing else to that, the
Councillor Brian McVeigh raised a hand.
Oh, sorry, Heather.
It was really just on the point of missing persons. Like, anything's only a deterrent if you want to be deterred by it. But if you're going to do something in public and the camera picks you up, it's not going to necessarily stop a crime happening, but it will record what you do. And certainly we've had reports to Council about the additional benefits of CCTV, yes, on supporting detection in crime, but certainly around about the missing persons work and being able to see, or if a vulnerable person has, wandered off or something like that, being able to track them and get them vital medical support really quickly. So it's, yes, it is about crime and deterrent, but it's also about looking after our most vulnerable as well.
Thank you, Heather. Right, if there's nothing else in that, Colin, it's regarding the LOIP plan. I think, are you going to wait for a cup of tea because you told us earlier on? Right. Nothing you want to add?
No, not really. Just to reiterate, we're just keen to get this onwards and upwards, and as soon as we have got the more detail in relation to the launch and we're moving forward, that will certainly come to the board. Absolutely. We're really keen to kind of take it forward.
Good. Look forward to December's board meeting. Right, thank you, Colin. 11, there's no petitions for the board.
Bill, can I just come in on the LOIP, please? Hi, it's Heather.
All right, yes, Heather.
It's just to the local outcome improvement plan is just to say to folk who might not be aware of it, it's got an awful lot of information about our communities. And what I would suggest, if you're working in any funding bids and you need information about the statistics of our area, or you want to look at like a community profile or anything like that, the information's already gathered in there, so you can just go in and pull that information out. So while we can talk about these funny acronyms, LOIP, you know, it's a profile in detail about what our communities look like and what potentially we might want to do to make change in them. So it should be a live document, and if anybody's writing any funding bids or wants to know the community via a statistical angle, it's not as boring as it sounds, I promise. It is a useful document, so I would really encourage people to use it as a living, breathing document and not just, you know, a kind of high level strategy document. So please do that.
Yeah. I would agree with that, Heather. It's a fascinating document with fascinating information. Not bedtime reading, but early evening reading. It's fine, but it's very good, yes. And Colin and his team have put a lot of work into developing the current plan. And it was agreed at the last board meeting, and Colin's now working up a public presentation of the documents. It's very, very good. Thanks very much, Colin.
No,
Thanks,
thanks.
Heather.
To be fair, it would it would be a remiss of me, because it's not just about Colin Bruce, it's the whole communities team, you know, and a range of different partners. So, you know, but it's really important to us as part of North Lanarkshire Partnership to kind of move on, you know, where we want it at a local level and to improve the lives of local folk. So absolutely, the document, the local outcome improvement plan, is very important as a kind of a front facing. This is the thing you'll actually see, but underneath that, the actual subgroups that will move at a very local level that will then move forward the priorities that have already been identified is more important, because that's when we'll get real community-based information and people to kind of get involved. Because obviously not everybody wants to come to a board meeting, but there might be folk that want to get involved in really grassroots community work, improving things, improving their lot within the local community. So I think it's very important as we move forward that we kind of we establish the subgroups or whatever entity we wish to call them. So again, sorry, Val, for.
Thank you very much, Colin. Item 12, input from the local community groups, is there's no agenda items from the community as shown, but does anybody
sorry, Chair, that there should have been one added, that the kind of Croy group that are here tonight, the Croy Community Hub, wanted to do an update on that.
Right, that would be excellent. Welcome to the Croy Community Hub. The table is yours.
It was just, we met with Colin and Heather, and it was just to obviously update on what we're doing. We're taking an NHS building over as Croy Community Hub. It was just really to talk about what we've been doing over the past year and a half. So there was an NHS building, which is the last space in Croy to do this kind of venture that we're looking to do. Over the years, for the last 5 years, it's been lying empty and on the verge of getting knocked down. So we thought, why not take it over, see what we can do, and obviously give back to the community. So that's why we formed Croy Community Hub, which is now a registered charity set up just to help with people within the community with loads of different ideas, and obviously helping give back to the community. So NHS Lanarkshire have met and have agreed and approved our application for the community asset transfer. So we will now officially take the lease of the building for a 2-year period, and we'll be working over the coming months with our consultants to finalise all the requirements needed to secure the fundings to complete the ownership process. Again, we've done this through COVID while expanding our knowledge. We've got great volunteers who help run the projects that we're doing at the minute, just to try and make the community a better place for everyone. And obviously they're keen to help us with our future ventures as well. Talk about the pantry.
We're also running a a food pantry, which is a £2.50 membership for the year, and then it's £2.50 to get 10 items of shopping. We try and base it over like a healthy breakfast and lunch for the family of 4 per day. We're open 4 days a week, and we've took us a pilots came down to Kilsyth, and they open 2 days a week as well for us. And that's down in the Stonehouse Church in Kilsyth.
So basically, with having the pantry, we really rely on kind of surplus foods, donations from other resources, and we also have a supply with Fair Share to tackle food poverty, food waste and stuff like that as well. So as well as the pantry, we also have other groups within the building. We're doing loads of different activities and support groups as well as the credit union within the building. And obviously we're just keen to expand with more, and we're just looking to open new links with people just to share our experiences, to get experience from other links and stuff like that as well. So that was the reason to come tonight as well.
Right.
So
That's
any
excellent.
questions are welcome.
Yeah, that's excellent, and thank you very much for coming. Robert.
Hi Bill, that's me just unmuting myself. I was trying to put a virtual hand up, but I couldn't find one, so I just put a real hand up there. Just to give a wee overview for youth work in Kilsyth. Like the workers at Croy there, we've worked through the pandemic. We're due to start just a new youth work term, so to speak, which will run up to Christmas, and we are due to be working within buildings again. So what we've got planned at the moment, and all fits into our youth work recovery plan, is in Garrowvale on a Tuesday night, we will have a alternate weeks. We'll have a youth voice group, which is giving young people, you know, a local voice, which will feed into the LOIP and hopefully the Kilsyth board in time. On other alternate Tuesdays, we're going to have a Duke of Edinburgh open group where young people can pop in or they can come in for the full session. And a Wednesday night in Garrowvale as well, we're going to have a group for S1 to S3 for Kilsyth, Queenieburn and the Banton area. And then a Tuesday night in Croy, we've took over our old let in the Antonine Hub, although I've spoke to Christopher from the clinic group, and we're looking at doing something there. But just as a starter, we've recommenced our old let in Croy on a Tuesday night. We're going to have an awards group there aimed at P7 and S1. Also, the Friday afternoons, we're going to be part of the Enrichment Fridays and the Future Fridays, which is the local high schools finishing at lunchtime there, where we'll deliver the expedition section of Duke of Edinburgh Awards in Kilsyth Friday afternoons. The other piece of work we're doing, and it kind of fits in or ties in with what Neil was saying from the police, is we've got a couple of detached workers at the moment working in Kilsyth Town Centre. For the last 3 weeks, they've been out on a Wednesday night and a Friday night from 6:30 till 9 o'clock. This was in response to a couple of issues that were raised through our communities team, namely sort of kind of bins being emptied and causing flooding on one occasion, and I think down at the pitches there was some reported antisocial behaviour on another occasion. So we deployed 3 detached youth workers for a period of a month just to do a mapping exercise. And like Neil, the findings have been noticed what was reported. They've seen young people about, no causing any antisocial behaviours and things like that. And we're due to undertake a review of that, what we do next, whether we continue to map the area and engage with those young people, or whether to move on to another area. But there's been 4 weeks or 8 nights, and I know it's just a snapshot, but there's been nothing of great concern to the detached youth workers in terms of antisocial behaviour, minor vandalism and things like that. So until next week, where we actually sit down and have that kind of formal review, I don't know where the detached work is going, but everything else I spoke about there is due to start as of now, this week or next.
Good. Thank you very much, Robert.
Chair, Chair, sorry, can I just give a little bit of progress around that? Sorry, Robert, just to kind of give a wee bit of background. So we want to kind of thank our colleagues at CLD in relation to the detached youth workers. As Robert said, they've been out for 3 weeks, and so there'll be another week or so left, and there'll be a report done in relation to their interactions and engagement. And then from there, we'll kind of assess the kind of the situation. But as Robert has been saying, actually the reality against what we're seeing doesn't necessarily meet, you know. So we kind of need to look at that. But I want to take the opportunity here because Robert, the work is happening. It's fantastic in Croy, especially. Obviously, we're very happy with the work that's going on in Kilsyth. I want to concentrate on Croy for a second here in relation to the work that's linking in with the stuff that's going to be happening at the health centre, and the two ladies here from Croy put in a sterling job along with Christopher, and they're a tightly knit group. They've got great volunteers. They have done amazing amount of work basically by themselves. I've got great connections, and that was really, you know, when myself and Councillor Brand McVeigh went up, I even mind was it last week, I think, you know, the amount of contacts that they've made has been fantastic. Just got on with it yourselves, and that's real community development. That's it's grassroots community work, and that's what it should be about, you know. And they know where to get either Councillor Brand McVeigh or myself for any kind of support that's required. But certainly it's a great boost for the community of Croy to have a community-led facility. I'm sure they would appreciate any other volunteers coming on board, but you know, the amount of work that you are putting in, ladies, in relation to the services that you're offering is just fantastic. And I think, especially for Croy, it's a good news story, and we want to kind of keep up that good news into the future. And certainly from the communities team point of view, you know that we will support you in every way we can. And I know that our partners at Vanel Grants here will certainly do whatever we need to support you. But as I say, you've already got good contacts, and it's important that you keep them. But you also know that in the background, we're kind of here to respond to any kind of request that you need for opportunities and development. So it's fantastic. So well done. I think it's a good news story, and I think we need to reflect on that.
Thanks very much, Colin. That's very nice to hear. Thank you.
Grand. Thanks, Colin, and thanks, Robert. And thanks to Croy Hub for coming. And I will get in touch because I would like to come out and see what you're up to. I'll be in touch.
You can come in next Wednesday and pick up a coffee at our coffee morning. We started as well.
Next Wednesday?
Well, it's just on tomorrow as well.
Is it? Right. Well, if you don't see me tomorrow, I'll be there definitely next Wednesday.
Right, I'll have a cup of tea ready for you.
Milk and two.
Milk and two.
Right. If there's nothing else on that.
Councillor Brand McVeigh's like to take him in, Bill. So you are. Sorry, Heather.
I was going to plug your coffee morning for everybody. So if you're out and about in the area on a Wednesday morning, please go up and visit, and you'll get a warm welcome and plenty of good chat while you're up there too. But I think excellent piloting of work. You know, there's cinema nights and just engaging with the community and finding out what folk are doing. It's appreciated, and I think the community pantry is doing huge work, really important work, and I think it really dovetails back to Maddie's presentation. If we're talking about, you know, diminishing food waste, and actually if we're putting all this effort into you know, producing food, let's get it used and get it into people's homes and feeding families, you know. And I think the community pantry is an excellent initiative in that, and you know, different days, and it's certainly very affordable. So I commend that to you, and encourage everybody to tell members of groups about it and go and visit either at the storehouse in Kilsyth or up at the clinic. I've got a question for Robert, if that would be all right.
Yes.
I'm just wondering about the timing of the detached youth work, programme. The issues felt by the community and the antisocial behaviour demonstrated by young people has been very real, although you've not seen evidence of it. But I'm wondering if the timing of it and the fact that maybe schools are restarting and maybe some of the clubs and initiatives that young people have are starting to go back to has actually diminished young people's availability to actually be up to mischief. Because I genuinely believe that when young people have got purposeful things to do, they would rather do that than do mischievous things or antisocial things or whatever. But you would expect me to say that as a youth worker. So I'm wondering if the timing of it has impacted and whether or not there would be the opportunity to redo this once the programme of normal work, if you like, in normal life, has, whatever normal is, has resumed, when folk are getting a pattern of participation again, because that will be the difference between the antisocial behaviour making itself present again and people being engaged in their community groups. So just wondering if the timing of it has had an impact.
I think there's a couple of points here. The first thing I would say, I've been out with the workers a couple of times, and this is only my personal view of being involved in youth work and being involved in detached youth work and being involved in Kilsyth. But what often happens, I think, is there's a report.
See hot? Fucking hell!
Who's that?
There's a report on social media. Not here. There's a report on social media of which everybody will see, and if young people don't see it, they'll catch wind of it. And sometimes young people will react to that for a couple of nights or so, and then it will go away. And by the time we've received information, young people will often move on to something else, and the situation's calmed down. I have seen antisocial behaviour and I've witnessed it, so I'm not saying that it's not there. With regards to the timing really, that came about just as a matter of coincidence. With regards to the review that's happening, I'll certainly be putting my case on the table to be saying 4 weeks is a short time to be making the decision, and I would be putting my tuppence worth in to be saying, let's have another 4 or 6. It's been 4 weeks of mapping. There hasn't really been that intention of engagement and things like that. It's about mapping the area, finding out, if the reports matched what the workers were seeing. I'd be advocating that they're there for another at least 4 weeks and hopefully up to Christmas. So if young people are engaging in antisocial behaviours and minor vandalism, things like that, we've got groups started up. Pantry's got groups started up, and I'm sure there'll be other organisations that get groups started up. So in terms of the detached youth workers, they should have plenty of places to be signposting these young people too.
Right, thank you, Robert. Thank you, Heather. Right. If I could move on to item 13, community planning partners. Neil, have you got anything you want to add? The community board is not as nice to you as we are in the community council, because we at least take you first and then get you out of the road and back on the beat.
That's all. And appreciated, Chair. Right, I'll try and keep it brief because time's marching on. Right, I'll just give a summary of events over the last period. So housebreakings, first of all, we've seen 6 incidents over the last period since the last meeting. I have to say, in looking closer at them, 4 of that 6 have all been in the area of Rennie Road and appear, in reading between the lines, to be more related to antisocial behaviour and ongoing disputes locally, as opposed to any kind of intent to actually commit theft. However, one theme that has emerged in relation to thefts is we're currently seeing a spike, and this is across Lanarkshire, not just in Ward 1, but it has been prevalent to Ward 1, and that's the theft of Ford motor vehicles. And whilst I don't want to put the fear of God into anyone that owns a Ford motor vehicle, I think it's just important to emphasise the spike that we're seeing. So the method that's been used is, unfortunately, criminal gangs have managed to access technology which allows them to, in the dead of night, they approach households, go towards the front door, and they use this technology to try and tune into the signal that's been given off by modern car keys. And if they manage to tune into the signal being given, that then allows them to access the vehicles and drive off, quite simply. So as I say, across the west of Scotland, we've seen a huge spike in this, and as I say, it is particularly prevalent to Ford motor vehicles. So locally, we've seen 3 instances of this, 1 in Queenieburn and 2 in Kilsyth over the last few weeks. And in terms of combating this, the best security advice that I can offer is to keep keys as far away from the front door as possible, and where possible to store them in a tin, and that can be something as simple as an old tobacco tin, just keeping it in a tin, and that helps to protect that signal. And also online you can buy, the likes of Amazon, they sell particular types of bags, just sealable bags, specifically for storing keys as well. So this is a kind of fairly new spike that we've seen, and a new theme. So I know there is work ongoing in terms of getting social media on board to get crime prevention put out there on social media. But I just wanted to mention that since it has hit us locally in Ward 1. Now, serious violence. Only really 2 incidents of serious violence over the last period. One, unfortunately, an attempted murder, and that was on the 1st of July in Kilsyth. And in relation to that, a 25-year-old and a 24-year-old male were both arrested, and they've since been remanded in custody. We also had an assault with intent to rob. That was in the middle of June in High Barwood Road in Kilsyth, and a 34-year-old male was arrested for that one. In relation to drugs, we continue to be proactive in tackling drugs and developing any intelligence that's coming in particular around the supply of drugs. We've seen 13 incidents involving drug seizures, the most significant of which over the last period was yet another large cannabis cultivation, this time from premises on Tackmadoon Road, and that was just earlier this month. Lawful fire raisings. We've seen 2 over the last period. On the 13th of June, there was a car setting fire in Parker Place in Kilsyth, and inquiries are very much ongoing into that one. And earlier this month, a 24-year-old male was arrested following a lawful fire raising at premises on Mance Road in Kilsyth, where fortunately nobody was injured. Other themes, off-road bikes, that continues to be a topic. I get a nervous twitch every time I talk about off-road bikes. It's been a theme we've seen here for so long, that's for sure. And I know there's many people that are in the meeting that have had various inputs into what we can do about that. One tactic, you're going to think I'm winding you up when I talk through this, but one tactic that we're going to be using, and coincidentally that just as of today, where we had local officers trained in this, we're going to be utilising what's called a DNA tagging spray, and effectively in layman's terms what that is it's almost like a water pistol, and it's got a water-based unique DNA tagging spray within it. Because the issue, as many of you know, is that we're not able to get close enough to those that are on these bikes, trial bikes or quad bikes, and we as the police can't engage in a pursuit of these vehicles. So what this allows us to is if officers can get close enough to tag them with this spray, even if they manage to make off after that, then what that then allows us to do is to continue to make inquiries, try and detect who that potentially is, and that will give us the sufficiency to take that suspect in, and under infrared light that will highlight whether they've been hit with this tagging spray at the point when police saw them. So that'll then give us a sufficiency of evidence to charge them for the earlier incident. So it is it is going to be new to us, and it's going to be on a trial basis, and we'll see how it works, but we're willing to try anything just to see if it can help make an impact in what is very much an ongoing issue. So this spray lasts on clothing and skin for a long period of time, several weeks. It's not hazardous in any way, I have to add, otherwise we wouldn't be allowed to use it, obviously. But certainly worth a go, and we'll see how that works out for us in the coming weeks. Schools are obviously back open, so in terms of our community engagement work, arrangements are already being made to reintroduce school talks, where the main topics will be along the lines of personal safety, drugs and alcohol awareness, and obviously we'll be, as usual, tying in with our friends at the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service for any joint working around the school engagement as well. And that's it really. But lastly, I just wanted to say that this will actually be my last community board meeting for Ward 1. The time has come for me to move on to a new role with Police Scotland. Believe it or not, that's 3 years that I've been in this area. And I can genuinely say it's been an absolute pleasure to work in the area. As was very eloquently put by Colin just earlier there is evidence that a really great positive community spirit in the area, whether it's voluntary work or otherwise, which is evidenced by much of the work that's been discussed already at this meeting. So as I say, it's been an absolute pleasure to be the area inspector for this area for the last 3 years, and I wish you all the best in the future. Taking over from me will be Inspector Susan Ray. She's currently in a position in the Airdrie Police Office, so she knows North Lanarkshire well. She'll be in position by the time the next meeting comes round in December. So that's it for me. Thanks very much, folks.
Thank you very much, Neil. And I would say on behalf of the Community Council and all the other organisations, it's quite sad that you're leaving us, because you've got a vast amount of knowledge, you've developed initiatives and information about the community, and that information that you've collected is a lot of it will be in paper, but a lot of it is in your brain and in your head, and that unfortunately will disappear with you. But wherever you're going, we wish you the very best and hope that it's as beneficial to you as it's been to us having you in Kilsyth. So thanks very much indeed.
Thanks very much, Chair. It's kind of you.
Any questions to Neil? Right, you're off the hook quite easily there. So congratulations, Neil. AOCB, Nicole, do you want to say anything about your summary of the litter bins? Or you just take it as read?
Yeah, I would be quite happy if there's any questions, but the plan was just to provide an update on where we were in terms of the litter bin rollout. As members are probably aware, Kilsyth was the first area that we rolled the litter bins out to. It is probably a once in a generation change, but it's certainly the first whole scale change and upgrade of litter bins that the council has undertaken in the life of this council and probably the previous council in the Strathclyde region. So it is very significant. We're very aware, as the note suggests, that there are some teething problems, and officers will continue to work those through. But I think as a service, I would certainly urge you not to lose sight of the significant investment and the betterment over a long period of time that the investment in these litter bins bring, together with the much cleaner collection regime via our RCVs from Waste Services. But I'm happy to take any questions to you.
And thanks very much, Nicole. Any questions to Nicole? Nicole, I would like to think, and I'm an eternal optimist and never give up on anything. I would like to think that this rollout of bins is going to be an improvement over the next few generations, that people will actually learn not to throw litter away, not to pick up their dog's excrement and take it home with them. So that at the end of the day, the millions of pounds that we spend on litter collection and all that could be spent on the environment. It could be spent on doing stuff in our communities rather than people going around having to empty other people's rubbish out of public bins. But that's maybe a high-flying thought and a high-flying idea, but I like to think that that's what might happen in 2 or 3 generations' time. Yes.
Chair, I too am an internal optimist, and I probably couldn't have said it better. However, you'll understand in my day job as Head of Environmental Assets, I'm hoping for that much sooner. So I'm trying to press for that culture change, I hope, in this generation. So again, the board will be aware that the rollout of the new litter bins is only one strand of the council's Recover NL programme. The others being, of course, the work within communities to encourage groups such as the environment group to undertake a bit more ownership of the local environment and look to work with the council in terms of improving the local environment. So there are numerous other strands all within the Recover NL report. So we'll keep pressing ahead, and I will remain eternally optimistic, Chair, that we can make that difference.
That's good, Nicole. The fact that you're 30 years or so younger than me, then yes, you might get it in your generation. Right. Any other AOCB, any other matters that need to be raised? Or have we all discussed out? Right, well, the next meeting is 1st of December, Wednesday, the 1st of December 2021, 6:30 till 8:30. And if there's nothing else, I would like to thank everybody for coming, in particular all these, the new faces that have appeared tonight. So thanks for giving up your time. The officers giving up their time to come and attend this meeting. So thank you. Good night, all. Night.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.